Well, after a costly legal clash over Obamacare mandates versus Hobby Lobby's health coverage this week, it got the Forbes gang thinking. As our nation celebrates its independence, why not set all Americans free by ending health care insurance as we know it, government and private? Now, that's a flip side. Sabrina, we're celebrating Independence Day. Really, the opposite of independence is dependence, either on the government or on your company. Why not go independent?
I'm with you, David. Look, we want more Americans to have control over their health care costs, their health care dollars, their risk assessment. And the best way to do this is to allow them to have more ownership when it comes to health care. I thought the Hobby Lobby win was a big victory for anyone who supports limited government, religious freedom. But really what it does is to put into sharp relief the importance that we give people more ownership over their health care dollars, and that Obamacare is the wrong direction for the country.
So, Bruce, we're celebrating independence this weekend. We want independence. We don't want to be dependent on anybody.
Well, here it might come as a surprise to you, but actually Obamacare and its exchange approach, where people buy coverage on exchange, and private exchanges, which a lot of private employers are going to, actually does move you to more independence.
What?
Because you're essentially you're getting a chunk of money, and people are saying, go buy your own health care, and that's the way the future is going to be. Now, you may disagree with the government subsidy, but the private employers, this is where it's headed, they're saying, here's a chunk of money, go buy your own health care, and then you get to choose from a menu of plans.
Okay.
It's
Bruce,
coming down the pike.
I love you. You set the table for debate so neatly. So, Steve, is Obamacare all about independence rather than dependence?
No, they wanted to create dependence on the government, but unintentionally they are blowing up the old system. We're not going to go back to what we had before. We're not going to have a single-payer system. What's going to evolve, and just don't get sick for the next 3 years while this happens, is a system for the first time where patients are in charge. And that means true catastrophic health insurance, and that means cheaper insurance, nationwide coverage, and we see beginning with flu shots in terms of delivery. Now you go to a filling station, fill her up, a flu shot, get it anywhere now. You're going to see that delivery system change for all of health care.
Yeah, and Rick, I would just say there's so much about Obamacare that works against independence and towards dependence. I mean, you can't deduct as much for your own independent spending on health care. There's a whole host of issues in Obamacare that moves away from independence.
Look, I mean, I actually can get behind the idea of what you're proposing in the question of people getting their own. Now that everybody can get insurance, remember, it wasn't all that long ago that if you had pre-existing conditions, you might not be able to get it. The only way you could get it was through a company employee plan. So I could get behind it. There's one big problem that we'd have to tackle. At least a company, because they have so many people they're covering, has the bargaining power of a lot of participants. When you're on your own, man, you're on your own, unless we find a way to create blocks of negotiating power.
Well, a lot of people want to be on their own. And, Kerry, the fact is that now you are forced. You're not independent. You are forced to buy what the government tells you to buy. Yes, you're paying for it, but you're forced to buy it. Of course, you're not paying for it if you're subsidized. So it's a whole host of ways in which we become, I think, more dependent now.
I agree. I mean, it is true that Obamacare is trying to decouple employment and have the portability of having insurance. But the problem is it's going about it all the wrong way. It has all these mandates. It loads the plans up. The conflict here we have with the Hobby Lobby is the fact that the government was mandating these excessively high types of contraception that Hobby Lobby just found morally objectionable. So Hobby Lobby was already covering 16 of the 20 or so mandated contraception coverage. And so why not let the consumer go and buy those, for contraception?
Well, and they will have the freedom to do that, John Tammy. The idea that there is no access to contraception is ridiculous. You still can go out and buy. By the way, there were only 4 out of 20 forms of contraception that Hobby Lobby decided on personal grounds they couldn't get behind, but their employees could still go out and get those 4 if they insist on it.
One is hugely expensive.
Go ahead,
Of course
John.
they can. And I think future history books are going to marvel at the idea that we put government in the control of health care. Capitalism, for all its cliches, provides an abundance. It clothes us, it feeds us, it flies us around the world. The idea that capitalism can't provide us with health care is just laughable. If we want Americans to have it, you want to put it in the hands of private markets, because that means that the most people will get it.
Well, Sabrina, at least Hobby Lobby won't be forced to provide those, to subsidize the purchase of those 4 out of 20 contraception. But still, they are being forced to do the other 16. I mean, you know, it's still amazing the degree to which people are being forced to do what they may not want to do now.
But you know what, David? I think one of the problems with this case is that the supporters on the right and the critics on the left have made this a conversation about birth control rather than about health care. What we want, and IWF, we submitted an amicus brief on this issue because we want employers and employees to be able to negotiate freely. We want them to be able to decide if they want more salary and take-home pay or, you know, stronger benefit packages. We want that kind of freedom in the workplace, and this ruling is sort of a step in that direction.
Well, Bruce, let me just see if I can bring you part of the way. 150 million Americans get their health care coverage through their businesses. Shouldn't that change? Right. Shouldn't it be individual more responsible for that than the companies?
Well, David, I think we're headed that way. And that's when I'm talking about these private exchanges. Increasingly, employers, and a lot of people on this program have said it, employers are wanting to get out from underneath health care. And so what they're doing is they're raising deductibles, they're raising copays.
David, this whole system is preposterous. All it does is prepay next year's expenses with a lot of administrative and profit overhead. And have a real insurance market, people would go for catastrophic insurance. It would be cheaper. We'd have lower health care costs. Everyone would come out ahead. Insurers would find a new line of business.
Sounds too sensible for government right now. It wasn't just Obamacare, folks. Why the Supreme smackdown on unions this week could be a boon for all U.S. workers. That's later on Cash It In. Coming up.